Who are these white Israelis? That is the question for today. Welcome again to another video. Today we're asking a simple question. Who are these white Israelis? We have seen in the past, if you are a Christian or you are a follower of the Bible, you know there's people in the Bible that are called Israelis or Jews or Hebrews. To start off, actually it was called Hebrews from the beginning, and then Israelis became Israel and everything else. So if you are a pastor or you are a Christian who knows your Bible, you know what I'm talking about. These words will be familiar to you. So the question today, who are these Israelis? Thank you so much again for joining me today to watch my video, and please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and to share the whole video. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Kgosi live show, which we are recording live from Kgosi FM studios back here, as you can see in my background as well. Yeah, so the question today, who are these white Israelis? Because we have seen now in Gaza, in Israel, in Palestine, white people are there calling themselves Jews. Are they really the real Jews? You know, because I was only, are they really the real Jews? Are they really the real Israelites? Or just people who adopted the culture and the language and claimed it to be their own? You know, we have seen that in Africa with Afrikaners who are not even African of African descent, but then they call themselves African. Are they African like us? They might not be, or they actually are not actual Africans like us, because Africans is dark skin like me. So are these ones that are calling themselves Jews today, are they really Jews? That is the question. You're gonna watch a video that I got on the internet yesterday night, and I was like, my mind was like blown to say, hey man, seriously speaking, yeah. So you're gonna watch that video, and you're gonna comment after that video, and you're gonna tell me what you think about what like you've just seen now. Are these really white Israelis? Is there such a thing? Anyway, are they really Jews or not? But before that, let's pass by my sponsor first, and then we'll continue after this. This show is brought to you by Segongane Medical Services and Clinic. They are a private clinic situated in number 70 Kgosi in Westview, Danville. They specialize on the following: primary health care, ailment diagnosis and treatment, including medication, wound care, family planning, well baby clinic, basic ultrasound, laboratory blood services, treatment of chronic illnesses, treatment and management of patients on ARVs, wellness screening, antenatal clinic, HIV services and counseling. They have a pharmacy on site, and they are doing CCMDD services as well, OHS clinic, circumcision clinic, and abortion services. Their cell phone number is 064 548 7176 or 071 422 8576. Again, the address is 70 Kgosi in Westview, Pretoria West in Danville. Cell phone number again is 064 548 7176 or 071 422 8576. Yeah, that is our sponsor for today, Segongane Medical Services and Clinic. They are a private clinic. They don't take any medical aid, only take $350 cash. So if you want to visit them, please go. They've got a very good service. The doctor is very good. The nurses are very good. The clinic is clean, is beautiful. It's going to be worth your while if you get there. But remember, the medication is not included in the consultation. So consultation is only $350. So instead of you paying 750 rands and then you get only a Panado and Allergex, which will cost you around $50, you actually choose if you want medicine or not. And then you can go home, only paid $350, but getting the best service you can ever find in Pretoria West. Yeah. Anyway, like I was saying, guys, the real Jews. Who are the real Jews? Are they as white as we see them now, or are they actually of a different color? Was just guy himself black or what? You know, was he black? Is there any lineage of him being a black man? Why did God say they must run to Egypt instead of running to Europe or run to whatever nearby city there? You know, why can't he just run there? But she said, go run to Egypt, save the child, take him to Egypt, because the king that time wanted to kill him. But the question today is, are they black? Are they white? Who are these white people that are in? Look at Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu is as white as Donald Trump, but he calls himself a Jew. Is these are people that actually took over the culture, who just so okay, there's a gap. Let's go in and learn the culture, learn the language. Even the Hebrew language is being widely used today. It was never actually used before. It was used for sacred text and some things, but never as a spoken language, because languages there was Aramaic. Jesus Christ himself spoke in Aramaic. He never spoke in Hebrew, by the way. But we'll actually, what we'll do is we'll actually explain more after we've seen this video, which blew my mind. I'm sure it's going to blow your mind as well. If you're a Christian, this doesn't mean stop being a Christian. No. You believe in God. You don't believe in a person. You don't believe in anybody else. Continue believing in God and just, live your life the way you've been living your life. But live it with knowledge of, the moment you as a Christian, your pastor say to you, oh, let's pray for Jerusalem, you ask him which one. Right? You just ask him, which Jerusalem are you going to pray to? The one that's bombing kids in Gaza now, or the real one? Then maybe he'll tell you something. All right. So listen, let's take a look at this video, and then we'll come back.
Israel went into Egypt with 70 people, and after approximately 750 years came out with over 2 million people, and hordes of other slaves who came out and became also part of the emerging new nation of Israel. So Israel, the biblical Israel, was a black nation, an African nation, that came out of Africa and kept constant ties with Africa. And so we have to remember then that Jesus was a black Messiah, not a white Messiah, and he comes out of the whole historical background of Africa, of African traditions, of African history, of African culture, the concept of communalism, the concept of a chosen people, the concept of kingdom of God on earth. All these things were out of African tradition, not out of the white man's tradition. And Jesus was essentially a revolutionary Messiah who was trying to lead a black people in a revolt, in a struggle and conflict with a white Gentile oppressor. So the whole church has to be viewed from the point of view of the white oppressor. The white oppressor has one kind of Christianity, has one kind of church. The black church has to become independent and go back to the historic African roots of Christianity.
The biblical Abraham was a man of color, a black man. So why aren't the modern day Israelites people of color? Why aren't they black-skinned? Why shouldn't they be? In the book, The Original Black Jews by Windsor, Rudolph R., 1935, the author discusses the origins of the Hamites and Shemites, or Semites. He states that the original Israelites were of the black race, and that the biblical Abraham, or Abram, was a black Shemite, which happens to be a descendant of Shem. Abraham was the father of both the Hebrew Israelite and Arab nations. The Hebrew Israelites would mean Jacob, twin brother to Esau, who later would become Israel, whose children would be Israelites. On the other hand, the Arab nations would mean Ishmael, Abraham's first child and son whom he had with the Egyptian Hagi, who happened to be the slave maid of Abraham's wife Sarah. The Creator's words had come to pass, according to the biblical scriptures, that the both would turn out to be great nations. The black Shemites intermarried with black Hamite Egyptian women, giving rise to the Arab nation. The author also states that Arabia was originally inhabited by the Ethiopians, who are also known as the Cushites, prior to the progenitors of the Arabs. Many of today's Arabs are not black due to the introduction of white slavery. The story of King Solomon of Jerusalem and the Queen of Sheba, known as Makeda by the Ethiopians, points to the origins of the present black Jews of Ethiopia, known as the Falashas. The Falashas claim descent from the child of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, Menelik first. The queen had returned to Sheba, which was part of the Ethiopian Empire, with Menelik first. Later on, Menelik was sent to his father in Jerusalem to be educated, where he accepted the name David. The Jews who returned to Ethiopia with Menelik are claimed to be the ancestors of the Falashas. The Ethiopian emperor, Haile Selassie, was also believed to be a descendant of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The book also describes the origins of Christianity and Islam, which are the offspring of Judaism. Here, the author refers to Christianity and Islam as the two daughters of Judaism. According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, the terms Hebrews and Israelites usually describe the same people, stating that they were called Hebrews before the conquest of the land of Canaan and Israelites afterwards. The Hebrews were an ancient Semitic-speaking people. Historians mostly consider the Hebrews as synonymous with the Israelites, with the term Hebrew denoting an Israelite from the nomadic era that preceded the establishment of the United Kingdom of Israel. According to the Deuteronomistic history in the Hebrew Bible, A united monarchy or united kingdom of Israel existed under the reigns of Saul, Eshbaal, David, and Solomon, encompassing the territories of both the later kingdoms of Judah and Israel. Whether the united monarchy existed, and if so, to what extent, is a matter of ongoing academic debate. During the 1980s, some biblical scholars had begun to argue that the archaeological evidence for an extensive kingdom before the late 8th century BCE is too weak, and that the methodology used to obtain the evidence is flawed. Scholars had remained divided among those who support the historicity of the biblical narrative, those who doubt or dismiss it, and those who support the kingdom's theoretical existence while maintaining that the biblical narrative is exaggerated. Proponents of the kingdom's existence traditionally dated to between c. 1047 BCE and c. 930 BCE. However, in some instances, the designation Hebrews may also be used historically in a wider sense, referring to the Phoenicians or other ancient civilizations, such as the Shasu, on the eve of the late Bronze Age collapse. It appears 34 times within 32 verses of the Hebrew Bible. According to the basic interpretation, the ancestral lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel suggests that they were originally black, tracing their roots back to African ancestors. The tribes are explicitly named in the Bible, which traces their roots back to the ancient Jewish patriarchs. Having seen that the ancient Israelites had African origins, I bet the question running through your mind will be, what then is the historical background of the modern-day white Jewish population? And how did they come to be identified as Israelites? The term white Israelis typically refers to Israeli citizens who are of European or Caucasian descent, particularly those from Ashkenazi Jewish backgrounds. Ashkenazi Jews are descendants of Jewish communities that originated in Central and Eastern Europe, and many of them migrated to Israel during the 20th century. However, it's important to note that the concept of whiteness is complex and can be problematic, as it often carries connotations of privilege, power, and racial hierarchy. In Israel, the category of white Israelis can be seen as a social and political construct, as it encompasses a diverse range of communities and ethnicities. Some of the groups that might be included in the category of white Israelis are 1. Ashkenazi Jews of European descent. In the 8th century, a Turkic people called the Khazars ruled a vast empire in Eastern Europe, stretching from modern-day Ukraine to Kazakhstan. The Khazars were a powerful and influential nation, strategically located between Europe and Asia, controlling key trade routes, including the Silk Road. Around 740 CE, the Khazar king Bulan converted to Judaism, and many of his people followed suit. This conversion was likely influenced by Jewish merchants and traders who traveled along the Silk Road, introducing Judaism to the Khazar elite. The Khazars established a Jewish kingdom with its capital in Atil, modern-day Astrakhan, Russia. The kingdom was a hub of intellectual and spiritual activity, attracting Jewish scholars and teachers from across the ancient world. The Khazar Jews developed their own distinct traditions, blending Jewish practices with Turkic and Slavic customs. By the 10th century, the Khazar kingdom declined, weakened by internal conflicts and external pressures from neighboring powers. Many Khazar Jews migrated to Eastern Europe, particularly to Poland, Lithuania, and Ukraine, where they merged with existing Jewish communities. This migration marked the beginning of Ashkenazi Jewry, as Khazar Jews integrated with local Jewish populations, adopting customs and practices from their new environments. During the Middle Ages, some European groups like the Normans and Saxons converted to Judaism, further increasing the Ashkenazi Jewish population. These conversions often occurred in response to economic opportunities or social mobility. Converts brought their own cultural practices and languages, enriching the Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. Over time, the Ashkenazi Jews intermarried with local European populations, adopting customs, languages, and cultural practices. This assimilation contributed to the development of distinct Ashkenazi Jewish traditions, such as Yiddish language and literature. Ashkenazi Jews also developed unique religious practices like the use of Hebrew and Aramaic in liturgy. Hebrew was primarily used as a literary and sacred language until its 20th century revival as a common language in Israel. Ashkenazim adapted their traditions to Europe and underwent a transformation in their interpretation of Judaism. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, Jews who remained in or returned to historical German lands experienced a cultural reorientation. Under the influence of the Haskalah and the struggle for emancipation, as well as the intellectual and cultural ferment in urban centers, some gradually abandoned Yiddish in favor of German and developed new forms of Jewish religious life and cultural identity. Throughout the centuries, Ashkenazim made significant contributions to Europe's philosophy, scholarship, literature, art, music, and science. As a proportion of the world Jewish population, Ashkenazim were estimated to be 3% in the 11th century, rising to 92% in 1930 near the population's peak. The Ashkenazi population was significantly diminished by the Holocaust carried out by Nazi Germany during World War II, which killed some 6 million Jews, affecting almost every European Jewish family. In 1933, prior to World War II, the estimated worldwide Jewish population was 15.3 million. Israeli demographer and statistician Sergio D. Pergola implied that Ashkenazim comprised 65 to 70% of Jews worldwide in 2000, while other estimates suggest more than 75%. As of 2013, the population was estimated to be between 10 million and 11.2 million. Recent genetic studies reveal that Ashkenazi Jews have a complex ancestry, with origins in the Middle East, about 30 to 40%, Europe, about 40 to 50%, and North Africa and the Caucasus, about 10 to 20%. This genetic diversity reflects the Khazars and Ashkenazi Jews' history of migration, intermarriage, and assimilation. Today, Ashkenazi Jews comprise approximately 80% of the global Jewish population, with communities in Europe, North America, Israel, and beyond. Their rich cultural heritage, shaped by centuries of migration and assimilation, continues to influence Jewish identity and traditions worldwide. 2. Sephardi Jews of Spanish and Portuguese descent. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Sephardi Jews from Spain and Portugal began migrating to Palestine, then under Ottoman rule. They were drawn by the promise of religious freedom and the chance to escape persecution. As Zionist ideology gained traction, more Sephardi Jews arrived, eager to build a new life in the Jewish homeland. However, they faced discrimination from Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants, who saw them as Arab Jews or Oriental Jews. Despite this, the Sephardi Jews thrived in Palestine, establishing communities and cultural institutions. But with the establishment of Israel in 1948, their identity began to shift. Israeli policy and education emphasized the importance of European heritage, and Sephardi Jews began to adopt Ashkenazi customs and language. They were encouraged to abandon their Ladino language and Middle Eastern traditions, which were seen as backward and Arab. As Sephardi Jews assimilated into Israeli society, they started to identify as white and European, distancing themselves from their Middle Eastern and North African roots. This process was reinforced by Israel's Eurocentric culture and the desire to westernize the country. Over time, Sephardi Jews became white Israelis, an identity that obscured their complex history and cultural heritage. Today, some Sephardi Jews in Israel continue to grapple with their identity, seeking to reclaim their Sephardic roots and challenge the dominant Ashkenazi narrative. 3. The Mizrahi Jews of Middle Eastern and North African descent. When Israel was founded in 1948, more than 700,000 Palestinians were expelled or forced to flee their homes in what is now the Jewish state. But from the early days of the state, there was a group that didn't buy the justification, the Jews with roots in the Arab and Muslim world. Called Mizrahim in Israel, these Jews today make up the largest ethnic group in the country. They mostly immigrated to Israel after 1948, and for much of the country's history, they have been victims of the same kind of anti-Arab ideology that is wielded against the Palestinians. For centuries, Mizrahi Jews had enjoyed high status in their countries of origin in the Middle East and North Africa, which ranged from Iraq to Egypt to Morocco. But when they landed in Israel, they found that the new state was ruled by European Jews, called Ashkenazim, who overwhelmingly viewed them as primitive and culturally backward. As Mizrahi Jews assimilated into Israeli society, they faced intense pressure to abandon their Middle Eastern and North African cultures. This was perpetuated by the Ashkenazi-dominated government, education system, and media, which promoted a Eurocentric worldview. Mizrahi Jews were encouraged to adopt Ashkenazi customs, language, and practices and suppress their traditional ways. The Israeli government and media often portrayed Mizrahi Jews as backward and uncivilized, and many were forced to abandon their cultural traditions and language in order to become Israeli. Mizrahi Jews were also subject to whitening policies aimed at erasing their non-European features. This included forced assimilation, cultural suppression, and even physical transformation. For example, they were offered nose jobs to fix non-European facial features. Some Mizrahi Jews were even forced to change their names to sound more Israeli in order to gain acceptance and access to resources and opportunities. Through this process, Mizrahi Jews began to identify themselves as white Israelis, a classification that obscured their Middle Eastern and North African heritage. This shift was not a natural evolution, but a result of systemic discrimination and cultural erasure. Mizrahi intellectuals at the time were quick to link the discrimination against them to the discrimination against Palestinians. Orientalism, Palestinian scholar Edward Said's term for a European tendency to portray the East as exotic, irrational, and uncivilized, was being used to cast both groups as inferior and deny them equal rights. Their struggle was one and the same, and so starting in the 1950s, Mizrahim and Palestinians formed a solidarity movement, producing everything from joint magazines to joint street protests. This movement offered a counterpoint to the villa in the jungle view of Israel, an alternative vision for how Jews and Palestinians can live together on the land. It also offers a more nuanced way to think about contemporary debates on the meaning of indigeneity, nationhood, and colonialism in Israel-Palestine. 4. Immigrants from the former Soviet Union and other European countries. In the 1990s and 2000s, a significant wave of immigrants arrived in Israel from the former Soviet Union and other European countries, including Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and others. This migration was driven by various factors, such as political instability, economic hardship, and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Many of these immigrants were Jewish or had Jewish ancestry, and were eligible for Israeli citizenship under the law of return. They were attracted to Israel's promise of safety, economic opportunity, and a chance to reconnect with their Jewish heritage. Some were also motivated by a desire to escape anti-Semitism and discrimination in their home countries. As a result, Israel experienced a significant influx of new citizens, who would eventually become an integral part of Israeli society. Upon arrival, they were initially considered others within Israeli society. However, as they assimilated, they began to be perceived as white Israelis. This shift was facilitated by their European background, which aligned with the dominant Ashkenazi culture. As they settled in Israel, they adopted Hebrew, learned about Jewish customs, and integrated into society. Many abandoned their unique cultural identities and embraced Ashkenazi norms, which were seen as the standard for Israeliness. Over time, they became an integral part of Israeli society, contributing to its diversity and complexity. Today, many immigrants from European countries are identified as white Israelis, often unaware of the historical power dynamics that shape their identity. The small country of Israel was established as a refuge for the oppressed white European Jews, who in turn became oppressors of people of color, the Palestinians. Although Israeli society is not racially divided between blacks and whites in the way that American society has long been, still, blackness in Israel has shaped the relations between Jews and Arabs, Ashkenazim and Mizrahim, Ethiopians, and immigrant workers from Africa. Despite the salience of blackness in Israel, scholars of Israel and the wider academic field of Israel studies have largely ignored it so far. In this video, I argue that the reason for this scholarly neglect is that in Israel, blackness does not neatly fit into the conventional configurations that exist in countries like the US and the UK. I further stipulate that in its uniqueness, the Israeli case shows that blackness transgresses color lines in new and unexpected ways, offering fresh perspectives on Israeli society and challenging the arbitrary stipulations of blackness as a concept. There are many significant differences, but also some similarities. While Israeli society is not racially divided between blacks and whites in the way that American society has long been, Israelis are certainly not colorblind, and having black skin can also have fatal consequences in Israel. For instance, in June 2019, Solomon Teka, an 18-year-old Israeli Jew of Ethiopian descent, was shot to death by an Israeli policeman. This outburst had sparked widespread demonstrations and rioting at the time. The Solomon Tekka incident was not an unprecedented event. In April 2015, video footage of Israeli policemen brutalizing Damas Pakada, a Jewish Ethiopian soldier, moved thousands of Israelis, Ethiopians, and others to the streets. One of the reasons this incident prompted a strong reaction was the fact that Pakada was an on-duty soldier wearing his military uniform. Military service is widely perceived as the ultimate rite of passage into Israeli society and as a stamp of approval for being a loyal Israeli citizen. Watching the footage of the assault on Damas Pakada that was captured by a security camera, many Israelis saw Pakada not only as an individual, but as an example of the successful assimilation of Ethiopians in Israel. Yet the incident revealed that despite this assimilation, Ethiopian Israelis still suffer from police brutality and discrimination even when they are in their official garb. Thus, in their protests, Israeli Ethiopians accused the police and the Israeli establishment more broadly of racism against their community due to their skin color. Such claims by Ethiopian Israelis, and the statistics that support them, have had a strong impact on Israeli public opinion. Notwithstanding the many schisms and tensions characterizing Israeli society, most Israelis still adhere to the idea of eliminating the differences between Jews in the country. Although the term black was used in Israeli discourse even before the establishment of the state and was attributed to various groups, Israelis do not usually perceive themselves or groups in Israeli society in racial terms. Therefore, the Pakada incident, revealing this hidden racial aspect, gained widespread attention in Israel well beyond the Ethiopian community. This was not the first time, however, that blackness was associated with official racism and discrimination in Israel. In 1971, second-generation Mizrahi immigrants living in the poor neighborhood of Musrara in Jerusalem formed the Israeli Black Panther movement. By identifying themselves as blacks, these Mizrahi youngsters alluded to the gap between the official Zionist narrative of ingathering the Jewish exiles and the reality in which some Jews remained outsiders in their home country. For the Israeli Black Panthers, blackness would serve mainly as a metaphor, whereas for Ethiopian Israelis, blackness is the material fact of their skin color, which makes them a target for institutional and systemic discrimination. On and on, the cases of discrimination by white Israelis on the black Israelis still continues. It is clearly obvious that behind the label, white Israeli, lies a complex tapestry of experiences shaped by history, culture, and circumstance. Their identities are multifaceted, influenced by a rich heritage of European Jewish traditions, the trauma of the Holocaust, and the resilience of immigrants seeking refuge. This complex identity is further nuanced by the blending of traditional and modern values and the intricate interplay between ethnicity, religion, and nationality. In closing, the question, who are these white Israelis, echoes through the corridors of history, revealing a complex tapestry of identity, power, and displacement. We have unraveled the threads of European colonization, Zionist ideology, and the dispossession of Palestine. Today, we stand at a crossroads where the myth of a homogeneous white Israel crumbles beneath the weight of truth. We recognize the diverse narratives, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, Sephardi, and Palestinian, intertwined yet conflicted. Let us shatter the illusions of supremacy and reclaim our shared humanity. Let us confront the systems of oppression that have ravaged the Middle East and beyond. To the Palestinian people, we acknowledge your resilience, your struggle, and your right to self-determination. Your freedom is our freedom. To the Israeli people, we urge you to confront the mirror of history and question the narrative of exclusivity. Together we can forge a new path, built on justice, equality, and coexistence. A path where 1. Refugees return home. 2. Walls crumble. And 3. Voices rise. We are the generation that will redefine what it means to be Israeli, Palestinian, and human. We will write a new chapter, one of reconciliation, solidarity, and peace. The time for change is now. That brings us
back. Yeah, we are back. I told you, my mind was blown now. Like, what? Ashkenazi Jews, white European people. Yeah. Listen, I'm a black person. I'm an African. But my origin is in Free State. Let me tell you why I'm saying that. Because 1, the Tswana people fled Shaka and Mzelegas, and they fled up until Botswana, present-day Botswana, and up until beyond Orange River, which is Mafikeng, Rustenburg, and all those places. I'm from the other side of the river. I'm not from Botswana, right? But if you can look at the Tswanas, the Sotos in Free State and the Sotos in Lesotho, we all dress the same in traditional garb. You understand? Because we are one people. There was no Soto before. There's only Tswanas. Those who remained and ran into Lesotho to hide in the mountains, they started adopting a new language called Sesotho. We still stood with our own language. The Pedi people comes from us. All right, comes from the very two languages, that's Sesotho and Sepedi, Setswana. That's why the language is called Sepedi. It's two languages combined as one and creating a language. It's a whole nation. So it's a whole history if you can just go through that. So these ones as well, I think they did the same. They saw the tradition, you saw in the video, they saw the tradition, they learned tradition, they learned tradition, then they learned the language. But the only thing that was there is that the language of that time of Jesus was never Hebrew. It was Aramaic. But then I'm going to go back a little bit further again. Okay? God said to Abraham, leave your people. Okay? He was speaking to one man. Leave your people, take your wife and your slaves, or whoever's there, and move to some place where I will show you. It was not in the Middle East, by the way. Abraham left, he went, and then he stood there. He stayed there wherever God said he must go stay. The question would be, what happened to the people that he left? Who were those people? Ne? And that time, there was never an Israeli, there was never a Jew. That time, it was only Hebrews. His people were not Jews, they were not Israelis, they were Hebrews. Ne? Follow me. So Abraham left, goes, and then God said to him alone, not to anybody else, him alone, I will make you a great nation. The whole world will be blessed through you. I will curse those who curse you. I will bless those who bless you. Not Israel, not the Jews, but him. Read the Bible. Him, Abraham himself. I will curse those who curse you. And I will bless those who bless you. Not the Jewish people, because there was never something called a Jew that time. There was never something called Israeli or Israel as a nation that time. Okay? So your pastors must actually teach you the truth and really tell you what really happened. Then you can be able to learn. Because the problem is you always look at the Bible alone and you don't even expand your knowledge to other books, books and whatnot that can actually open up your mind and blow it like mine got blown yesterday after watching this video. Sorry. Excuse me. You just go into the Bible and check that verse. God was speaking to Abraham. He was alone, no kids, his wife, and other people that were staying with him. Maybe slaves. And slaves means workers, by the way. In the Bible terms, it didn't mean a slave that's got a chain around their neck or dying. No, it meant a worker. Those who were working for him. Okay. Now, Abraham left, he went, right? Then one day, Sarah said, listen, I'm going to get old now. Okay, actually, I'm old. I'm only almost a century old. I don't have any kids. And you are rich. I don't want you to die and then you don't have anybody who's going to inherit all this. Take my Egyptian servant. Take her, she's still young. Take her, make babies with her. Egyptians were as black as you and me. That time. They were not Arab as we see Egypt today. Because Egypt, the north of Africa, was invaded by Islam, bringing Muhammad himself, invading the whole of North Africa up until Algeria, Morocco, and all those, and turned those places into Arab places. So everybody who was that time in Egypt was as black as me and you. Don't get twisted, don't get lied to. People say, no, Arabs are... No. Egypt was never an Arab country. Egypt is in Africa. Africa had all the black population was black from Cape up until Cairo. Do you understand what I'm saying? So Sarah said to this guy, take the maidservant. Okay? Take the maidservant and then please make babies with him. And what came out of that was Ishmael, the father of all Arabs, the father of all Islam, the ancestor to Muhammad, the one that created Islam after the Catholic influence. That's another story for another day. One day I'll let you know. All right. They made a baby. a baby was born. He was a boy called Ishmael. Then God said to Sarah, no, actually you're going to have a baby soon as well, yourself. She laughed. She's like, why are you laughing? I'm like, listen, I'm old. Maybe how am I going to have a baby in my old age? Then the Bible says, the angel asked him, is there anything impossible for the Lord? She bore another son called Isaac. This boy was called Isaac because Sarah laughed. That's what Isaac means. Do you understand? Now we're looking at a man called Abraham who slept with a black woman and he produced a child. That is not going to come as white as like European. Never. Right? Because that woman was not even Arab. So don't get it twisted. She was never Arab. You understand? She was never Arab. So Abraham slept with this one, they made a baby. And then Sarah now, seeing that she's got a son and stuff, said, like, you know what? Send this one away. I don't want to see them anymore. Abraham did what his wife said, and then God told Abraham, listen, it's fine. Do whatever she said you must do. Because I'm going to bless this boy. I'm going to make him a great nation as well. We are speaking about the Arabs. Okay? The one that have been bombed in Gaza, we're speaking about those. Okay? God told Abraham, the father of the so-called Judaism, the father of the so-called Israelis, the father of the so-called Jews that are in there that are so white, that have got racism in their veins, they've got apartheid in their veins, they don't like anybody else except who's white. You know, like you see in the video. The video says, I mean, if you look into every white society, they want themselves to be alone. That is why they ran to this one and said, listen, we're going to colonize this one now. We colonized America, we colonized Africa, we colonized New Zealand, we colonized Canada, we colonized Australia. Then we're going to colonize the Middle East and take it over and say, we are the original. They are not. They are not. Right? So, in the video, Abraham was a black man. He slept with another black woman and they produced one. All right? They produced a child. Fine. Now comes now Isaac became a man. He grew up, blah, 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 blah. Now it's the time for him to get married. Remember, there was no Jew that time. There was nothing called Judaism. There was nothing called the religion now that you see. There was nothing called Israel. There was nothing called Jew. So this whole thing of them trying to blackmail America to tell America, listen, you will curse those who curse you. No, he was speaking to Abraham, not this so-called nation, because that nation was never even there. It wasn't even there at all. All right? Fine. Abraham said, listen, go and look for a wife amongst my people. Remember the people that he left before? Go and look a wife from my people on Matlela. Then the guy left. He got Rebecca. He came with Rebecca. Then half-fetal Rebecca. And Isaac married the girl, and then they have 2 sons. Okay? They now have 2 sons. They have Esau, which is Esau Gastswana. The Bible describes this man as red and very hairy. Red in that time means light. So he had a light skin and very hairy. And then he had Jacob. Jacob was smooth, and again, the Bible just says he was smooth. It doesn't say much about him again. It just says he was smooth. But Esau was red, like this. He was red and he was hairy. Okay? He was full of hair. Fine. And then those two, they fought for the birthright. Because I remember, the Bible says when this one was born, when the Esau take out his hand first, Jacob put it back. And then the second hand that came out, they tied a string. And then that string that person became the firstborn. Right? Then Esau, Jacob tricked him into giving him his birthright by saying, listen, I'm hungry. This one came from a hunt, because they said Esau likes to hunt and always be on the road and whatnot. So he said, no, listen, I'm very hungry. Give me food. And no, I'll only give you food if you want to give me your birthright. It's like, well, yeah, whatever. You are the firstborn, take it, give me food. Food, eat. Then Isaac comes the time that he must die, and he wanted to bless them. Both. So as I was saying, Isaac was now nearing his time to die. And he's like, you know what, Esau, I want to bless you. I want to give you a blessing. So, Tsamaya oye ko barking. Tsamaya bring me something. Cook for me nice food. And after I've eaten, I will be able to bless you. Esau left. He went to the bush to go hunt like usual that he does, like that he always does. And then Rebecca was listening that time. No. When Ora Jacob, your father wants to bless Esau. So go into the yard, take a nice lamp, way up aye, and then utlise the skin, bring me the skin. And then when she brought the skin, he put the skin, because Isaac was blind that time. So he put the skin on him, the skin of the sheep on him. And when Isaac would difference between the two of them. Like if he touches Esau, he knows Esau's got a full of haste. He knows it's him. And then even the voices, he could know. This is the voice of Esau. This is the voice of Jacob, right? Sharp. And this is before Jacob was called Israel. Okay? Way before Jacob was called Israel. So bear with me and just follow me the way it is, right? Fine. Now, this boy goes, cooks quickly. Nama Aboe takes this meat into Isaac's room. Papa, here's the food. Let's eat. It's like, who are you, my son? I'm not knocking at Esau, but the voice is Jacob's. But when when he touches him, it's like, but the body is Esau. But anyway, it doesn't make any difference. He eats. The meal was delicious. From this, come. Then he blesses him. All right. After blessing him, Esau comes. Does the same routine. He cooks the food and then he takes it down. He says, Papa, here's the food, but I've already eaten. What do you mean another food? From who? From Esau. Come here. But who was here before you? Who was here before you? Remember, this Jacob person was very, very clever. Jacob robbed Esau of his birthright. He robbed him of being a firstborn, like being born first. Now he takes his blessing. That is Jacob. All right? The smooth one, not the red and the hairy one, but the smooth one that always is domesticated, stay at home and does much of the house chores and stuff. Fine. So this boy gets angry. He wanted to kill his brother. His brother ran away to his uncle Laban. Now remember, Abraham comes from somewhere. Now those people are still there. So this one runs up to Labani. He stayed there, worked for him, and then he wanted to marry, but then Laban said, okay, I'm going to give you my firstborn daughter. You can marry her, blah, blah. He's like, no, okay, sharp. Work another 7 years for me, and then you can take the small one. Or take them both. He does. That means they met their cousins, right? Because that was an uncle to him. Fine. The time Jacob left Laban's house to go back home, right? On his way, with all his entourage that he had, and one of the wives, by the way, hid one of his father's gods in between the saddle of the camel. She hid one of those and sat on top of them so that they can be able to continue their religion where they go. Remember, there was no Jewish religion, there was no Israeli, there was nothing. All right? That's what the Bible is saying. So when he came down, he came back, and then on his way, an angel of the Lord approached him, and they wrestled. They fought for the whole night. The guy was like, listen, the dawn is coming. I have to leave before the sun rises. It's like, no, I'm going to leave you until you bless me. That is Jacob. He was wrestling, and then he couldn't defeat the angel, but the angel couldn't defeat him because the angel couldn't kill him as well. And then the angel dislocated his hip. And then that's when the angel said, you know what? Just because I've done this, it's fine. I've defeated you, but I'm going to call you Israel from today. You'll be known as Israel because you wrestled with God. Not because you're the chosen nation, not because you're whatever, but because you wrestled with God. There's a difference between Israel, the chosen of people of God, and Jacob, the one who wrestled with God. That is the meaning of the name Jacob. Nothing more, nothing less. So whoever comes and tells you, oh, Israel is a chosen, they are lying. That's a lie. That's what the Bible is saying, not me. Read your Bible from Genesis, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then you interpret, you ask the Holy Spirit to actually interpret this whole thing for you. Then maybe you can understand what we are talking about. Okay? Fine. Now, Jacob comes back home. He gets there. He meets up with his brother. They hug. It's a merry thing. Homonati, Isaac is dead. Rebecca is still alive. Homonati, they become one big family. Now, this boy has 12 sons. He has 12 sons. Okay, he calls them all by name until the last born being Benjamin. All right, he has 12 sons, and these sons grew up and they all become, they are his sons. Fine. And then there was famine in the land. Remember, they first sold Joseph. The one of the sons. They sold him into slavery, into Egypt. And then now comes the time when there's famine in I'm not going to say Israel, but in Palestine. Now they have to leave again and go to Egypt. There were 70. When they got there. Jacob, his wives, and all his sons, and their wives and their kids. 70 people, all in all. When they got into Egypt, they found out Joseph, one of the sons, was actually a prime minister at the time of the Pharaoh. And he tested them. You know much the story. They first went, bought wheat, came back, then went again, and then the second time, for them to go back, second time Joseph tricked them and hid his cup inside one of the bags. And then the soldiers came, you stole the cup of the king's prime minister, they have to take back. And then they said no. He said, no, leave the last born with me, Benjamin, then go and get your father. Then they went, that's how they left. And that's how they actually went into Egypt to stay there. They multiplied. They left about 2 million of them after only when there's 70 people. 2 million people left Egypt. Okay? So, they became slaves, remember? They became slaves to the new Pharaoh because they didn't know Joseph. They became slaves there. And the question I was asking, politically question, are we saying white people once became slaves to us as blacks? Because Egyptians were black. They were never Arab. Even beside that, let's say, okay, fine, for some argument's sake, fine, they were Arab, right? Are we saying those white people in Israel now, did they really become slaves to us for 4 centuries? Hey? Are we saying they became slaves to us for 4 centuries? Okay? That's the question you should ask yourself. Because I can understand why some pastors will lie to you and tell you, listen, no, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Why would I pray for a peace of Jerusalem when the very same Israelis, they're also studying these wars? So how am I supposed to pray for any? It's not like they're being attacked. I pray for peace for somebody if they are under attack. Not when they are the attackers, they are aggressors. Then how do I pray? I must pray for the peace of the Palestinians who are being bombed every day. Now, jumping back into the 12 tribes of Israel, right? The 12 sons of Israel. How about the tribes around? Each and every son started his own tribe. That's why they became the 12 tribes of Israel. Israel meaning the father, not Israel the nation, the father. One of those sons was Judah, was the firstborn, I think. First or secondborn. I think first was Simeon and then Judah, but I think it was Judah the firstborn, right? Because even after their own civil war, they divided the kingdom between Israel and Judah, right? So, and listen to this. When they left Egypt, they went around Sinai, and then they went up to a city called Jericho. God didn't give them the whole land of Palestine. He gave them a city. And he told them, you're going to find people there. You're going to find people there. Don't be like them. Don't worship their gods. Don't do anything like them. You're going to find people staying there. All right? But you should be separate. Not apartheid style, but you should continue doing what the law. The Hebrew religion started with Moses. Okay? Remember these people were in Egypt for 4 centuries. 4 centuries. Okay? So there's 4 generations of people. The very ones who went into Egypt with Jacob, they were long dead. They were long dead. So it was descendant of a descendant of a descendant of a descendant. Even when they went into Jericho, there was no 12 tribes because the 12 sons were dead. There were only 2 million people who were intermingling amongst each other. I don't know if you understand the history and maybe you get the context of what I'm talking about. So when somebody says the 12 tribes of Israel, they are all dead because the very founders of those tribes were dead. It was 4 centuries later, for goodness sakes. They went there as boys with their wives and kids. They left there as a nation of 2 million people. When they got to wherever, to Canaan, let's just use that word, to Canaan, they found a city of Jericho and they settled there. Not the whole of Palestine, not bombing any person, not anybody. Those are the real Hebrews who now had the Mosaic law, which is the 4 books of the Torah, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. And all of them, Exodus is the history of what happened in Egypt coming down. Genesis is the creation of the world, how God made the world, Adam and Eve and the rest. Deuteronomy, Leviticus is more of laws. That's when God shaped himself a nation. Because the whole world now didn't know who this God is. So you know what? I'm not going to come with clouds and whatnot. I'm going to come with a people that will, other people will hear and they will join and they will all be blessed at the same time. But it was never these white people in Egypt, in Israel now who are saying they are the what. It was never them. It was never these people there. These people are white and they are Europeans. They are never, and they will never be. They are never, and they will never be Hebrews or even Jews. The thing Judaism is a religion started with Moses, naming it under the son Judah. That's why Jews, the name Jew, Judaism start coming from. It comes from Judah. Do you understand what I'm saying? It came from Judah. So here we are now. With these white people there, bombing people who are Arab, who actually, they are real Semitics. If we were anti-Semitic, the Buakadi Arabs, they Hashem. Haribuika, these white people. So they've coined the name anti-Semitic for themselves because they want to be superiors. They want to rule everywhere, wherever a white person goes. He wants to be above you. He wants to be your boss. He wants to be superior. He thinks he's superior. We can see now with this one. So we've seen what happened in Africa. When they came here, they were superior. They say they're superior. When they get to the US, they were superior. When they get to Australia, wherever they've colonized, the British people, especially British ones, because those who are in Egypt, those who are in America, they are British. Those who are in Australia, those who are in Canada, those who are in New Zealand, they are British. The French will go and colonize a little small country in Africa, the Spanish, Belgians, and like in the Congo. But the major ones who did real colonization were the British, were the English-speaking people. That's why those continents, they speak English, not in other language. Do you understand? Even these so-called Jews in the in Israel, they speak pure English like the Americans, but they adopted the culture, they adopted the religion, and they made it their own. Recap: there was in the time of Abraham, there was never a person called a Jew. There was never a person called an Israeli. When God made that promise to Abraham that I'll make you a mighty nation, he didn't speak to people; he spoke to one man, who was a Hebrew. The Hebrew language was never a language. It was a language only used in sacred text. The same as the Roman Catholic Church tried to corner the Bible in Latin and put it there for themselves only, to make it sacred and to make it, exotic, like, oh my God, it's Latin. Yeah, the same way. Do you understand? The same way they tried with, not actually try, Hebrew was more of a sacred text that only was used for the Bible, those sacred scrolls and whatnot. That's it. So, Bakaj, don't fall for this crap. These people are not Hebrews. They're not Hebrews. They are fakers. They are Ashkenazi Jews who actually adopted the religion. The Hebrews were black, like me and you. The real ones. It's a common thing about Europeans. Wherever they go, they want to be dominant. They want to dominate a species. They want to destroy and be only them. They want to colonize. That's the mind. The mind of a colonizer will never fall away. How in God's name do you endure? From 1942, 3, 4, 5, 4 years of brutal subjugation from other white people. That's why Whoopi Goldberg said something. He said something very nice, and he was crucified. She was crucified. She said that was a white on white violence, what Hitler did to them. It was white on white violence. And it was taken out of context, and yet she had to go and apologize. All that nonsense. It's true. the so-called Hebrews and the so-called Jews, not even Hebrews, the so-called Jews are as white as Adolf was. They are white as him. They are white as Donald Trump. When Benjamin is standing there with Trump, I see two white men. But then you ask yourself, how come would God pick up this nation and then put it in an area where it's people that don't look like them, and these people want to destroy them, want to kill them, and then how does he do that? And why would God choose another white race to be their own chosen people? Whereas there is French, there is Belgians, there is Polish, there is all these people. But then from Poland up until Ukraine and the rest, that's where all these people come from. They had to go and do the Jew noses, plastic surgery to look Jewish. They had to go and change their names. That's how fake this whole thing is. They had to go change their names. They had to go do plastic surgery. They have to learn the language. They have to do all these things that will make them genuine Jews. But remember, there was never a Jew at the time of Abraham. There was never a Jew at the time of Isaac. There was never a Jew at the time of Jacob himself. Judaism came at the time of Moses. That religion was called Judaism because most people there, they were from the tribe of Judah. All right? Judah, who was one of the boys of this person, of Jacob. Hence, they say Judaism. Okay? So, our kids, tell me, what do you guys think? Comment below, tell me what you think. If you're a Christian and you think you very chill, like a Bible debate, maybe we'll one day come to my studio, let's sit down and debate this thing. One thing for some, I'm going to tell Christians, stop praying for these people. Ne? Now, let's just, make it more clear that there are no chosen people anymore. All this happened in the Old Testament up until Malachi. Now comes the New Testament. Jesus Christ come. Jesus comes. When Jesus Christ died, the veil that was in that temple, this thing, which I always use whenever I talk about that. This is called the Ark of the Covenant. Okay? I want to get exactly like this. Ark of the Covenant. Inside this thing, it was Aaron's rod, the second tablets, manna that God gave them. And these were considered to be holy. No one can touch this thing. There was one guy who, when this thing was on the donkey cart, and the wheel broke, I think, and it was about to fall. He ran to try to hold it. The Bible says God killed him immediately. You can't do that. So this religion started with the Levi. One of the sons was Levi. Remember, Moses was told to choose 12 men from the tribe of Levi and tell them, your tribe were not Levi. Listen to this. Another revelation that God is giving to us. One of the sons of Jacob was called Levi. All right? Was called Levi. And God said, when I Levi, your kids and anybody else who's going to be born under this thing of Levi, under your lineage, will never inherit any land or will never have any inheritance in Israel. They will always be priests. They will work in the temple. Fail. It's about Ruti fail. About to cry anything. So if you can ask Benjamin now, Benjamin, which ones of you guys are the tribe of Levi? And why are they here occupying Palestine? He won't even answer you. You understand? Because they don't even know this whole thing deeply the way we do. Because they rejected the Bible. They only embraced 4 books of the Torah. And they never went and did the whole Bible as well. You understand? Anyhow, the veil around this thing broke. Simply showing that now access to God is no longer about race, being born as a Jew, being whatever religion, is up to you and God now. It's me and God together. You understand? It's no longer about, no, I have to, the only way I can go through to God is go through the temple with the priests and then go through the pastor first, Muten Rapelle. No, it's you and God now. You pray to God straight, done. You understand? That is why this whole symbolism mean. It went further. Paul says there's neither Jew nor Gentile. We are all the same. Remember what the Lord said to Abraham. Through you, nations of the world Babotle will be blessed. Through you alone, man, individual. Not through one day after some centuries, I'll be giving these white people a place called Palestine. These were refugees after the World War. After World War II, after Hitler was defeated, they were refugees from Europe who were given this kind of place. They were the only ones who were holding this Jewish thing because they landed. They were never original Jews. It's the same as I can convert to Islam myself as a black person. We know Islam is full of Arabs or Indian-looking people. But then I can just transform into being a Muslim myself. Here I am. And you know, Islam is more, which actually is Islam, Ismail, remember? It's more accommodative than this so-called Judaism. Did you see a soldier in uniform being harassed by police just because he was dark-skinned, Ethiopian boy? You understand? So they don't accept anybody else because they want this to keep this white. It must be white. It must never have, it must be white people only because they are colonizers. They are Europeans, wherever they go, they never bring anything good. They only bring bad and terrible things. They colonized America. They colonized Australia. They colonized New Zealand. They colonized Canada, and they killed off all the indigenous people. And they call themselves Native Americans. You are not. You are all immigrants. So there's neither Jew nor Gentile. We are all equal according before the Lord. So being born again, accepting Jesus Christ into your life makes you part of this. There is no Gentile church. There is no whatever church. There is no church. It's only us. Everybody else who's born again, it's us. So this whole thing of the Gentile church will enter at the end of the day, that's a lie. There's no Gentile church. There's no Gentile this. Because the Jew thing does not exist. The Jew thing that even in the Bible, there's no, the Jews is just the name, Jews, because people call them Jews. And way back, World War II, Judaism or being called a Jew was actually a derogatory word because it made them feel somehow, hey, Baba never kibale. You understand what I'm saying? So guys, let's not fall for this and say, oh, no, Judaism. There's nothing like that. There is nothing like that. There was never Judaism or Jews or Israel the time God spoke to Abraham and tell him, I'm going to make you a mighty nation. That's all. Comment below. If you bring your pastor here, yourself come. Let's talk about this. Let's debate. I've got 3 tables here. I've got 3 chairs here. Come, let's talk about this thing. Let's debate it. Then we will see, beloved, what is the truth? Because I've seen Reverend Mesho going to Israel to pray. Oh my God. He went to pray for the Jews. Next door, there's bombs killing kids. People have been starved. Starving. Literally starving. Israelis, Boneba, they go and camp on the edge of Gaza and they see when bombs are being dropped and they rejoice and they eat watermelon and they eat sweets and they are having candy floss. Even their like we see these terrible people watching the demise and the death of other people. You see? So if you're a Christian, you should be ashamed of yourself. Or now you are a Christian, you support Israel. Like, what are you supporting them for? Because the Bible says so? Show me a verse. I just showed you now where Abraham spoke to God. God spoke to him, not a nation of anybody. Him. And the word Israel comes from the 3rd generation. After Jacob. And the name Israel simply means he who wrestled with God. Not a mighty nation chosen by God, but he who wrestled with God. And out of you, I'll give you 12 sons. That will make a whole nation. Yep. And there was no Jews that time. There was no word Jew that time, by the way, again. So make up your mind. Tell me what you think. Yeah. Then let me know. Comment below. I love you. Bye-bye.